We've also tidied up some rules on early completion. So a transaction can actually be completed either because it reaches the end response phase, or because TLM completed is returned. So in other words, TLM completed is not mandatory. A transaction does not have to end with TLM completed. It can simply end because it's reached the end response phase, the fourth of those phases. And moreover, TLM completed from a target carries an implicit begin response. So if a target just comes back completed, implicitly that carries a begin response. And begin response implicitly carries an end request. So if an initiator sends a request to a target and the target just comes back and says, completed, I'm done, then implicitly in that completed, I'm done return is a begin response and an end request. And those implicit begin response and end request phases have to play with exactly the same exclusion rules as the explicit begin request and end request and begin response and end response. And that causes all sorts of fun and games when you're trying to code up interconnect components. So a completed comes back, but completed is equivalent to begin response. So if there's already a response outstanding, we'd better stall that completed because you can't have two responses at the same time. So there's all sorts of trickery going on here to actually implement these rules properly. Also, clearly, transactions can complete at different times on different hops. And what happens actually is that the memory manager interface free method gets called on the final call to release. So each individual component calls acquire and release on a transaction. The memory management therefore gets distributed over all of the components. When the final component calls release, the reference count in the transaction object gets reduced to 0, and then the free method of the memory manager gets called. So that's the one place it all comes together. So if you want to have some diagnostic code run, for example, or write something to a file when you come to the end of the lifetime of a transaction, the place to do it, and now we've decided the only place to do it, is in the free method of the memory manager. That's when it all comes together at the end of a transaction lifetime.